Hello everyone. This week we're going to apply the knowledge that we obtained with the introduction to Python programming last week in the field of digital image processing and computer vision. During the workshops, we're going to do a few drills about applying Python programming and a particular Python library that's called OpenCV on real images. And in this short introduction, I'm going to be talking about the main concepts of digital image processing, computer vision, and especially the applications of these fields in various areas, application of these methods in various areas. In order to put things together, when you played with the Zumo robots, you learned a bunch of sensors, right? You learned how to activate the proximity sensors, which I believe are infrared, and also the light sensors that are at the bottom of Zumo that you use to read black and white. Going upper in the level of complexity in terms of sensors, there is one of the most complex sensors that we have everywhere, that we can see everywhere, is a camera. It's a video camera. In order to use this information in a cyber physical system, it could be a robot or in industry, it's essential that you understand at least the basics of digital image processing in computer vision. So in a nutshell, we're going to be learning how to process this data in the same way that you process the data from the simple sensors in the Zumo robots. We're going to be learning how to process images in order to extract information for, well, you name it. You can imagine the number of applications that you can develop using images as input. Now, what is image processing? What is digital image processing? First, in order to answer this question, we have to ask ourselves, what is a digital image? There are many ways of understanding it. We can understand it as a 2D function. It's a 2D function. Let me get a pen here. And where x and y are spatial plane coordinates, and f, x, and y are the intensity or gray levels of the image at point x and y. These are finite discrete quantities. That's what they are called, a digital image, composed by a finite number of elements that are called picture elements, or also image elements. That's the meaning of pixels. Have you ever seen a pixel? If you're watching this lecture using a computer monitor, if you're using a mobile phone, it will be difficult. But if you're using a big monitor, try to get a little bit of water and just throw on your monitor. I'll do it with mine. So you're going to see the water droplets work as a lens. And if you look closely, you can see that there are little dots, little colorful dots in each one of these droplets. These are the pixels. So if you do that, do it now, and you're going to see pixels or picture elements. So an image is nothing more than what we call a matrix with little image elements, which are pixels. And each pixel, in its most basic form, has only one kind of quantity, which is its intensity. So x and y is the coordinate of the pixel. This is the pixel, this is the y coordinate, this is the x coordinate, and an image is just a function of x and y representing the intensity of this pixel. All right, so what is it? What is digital image processing? It's basically algorithms for processing digital images. But now we can think about digital images on a broader sense, right? It covers digital images cover the whole electromagnetic spectrum, from gamma to radio waves, and also images from other sources, or not from visual sources, such as images from ultrasound. As the name says, it's not visual, it's not light or electromagnetic information. It's actually sound. Electron microscopy, where it's not sound or light, but it's electron. So you bombard a particular whatever you want to see in a microscopic scale with the electrons, and what you pick on the other side, what your sensor is picking out, are pixels related to the intensities of the electron that actually passed through the material that you want to analyze. Now, this is then the entire range of imaging that you can, just thinking about the electromagnetic spectrum. This is the energy of one photon in electron volts. So 10 to the power 6 are gamma rays. Then comes X-rays, ultraviolet. You see that the visible light is very narrow. So this is the whole thing that we can see in the world of electromagnetic information. We can only, our eyes are very limited and can only see a little part of it. But there is going to high energy, infrared, then microwaves, then radio waves. So this is the whole electromagnetic spectrum arranged according to energy per particle. Now, there's a kind of, it's not a confusion, but some people use image processing, some people use computer vision interchangeably. There is actually no clear boundary, and I don't think the boundary is that important, but it's interesting to see what it really means. So it becomes clear once we consider the three types of processes involved in the image processing of, as we're going to see, computer vision. So there's the low-level processing, which involves noise reduction, contrast enhancement, and image sharpening. Right? There's things that once we use Instagram and there are those filters, we're going to learn how to build these filters, right? Which basically what we're doing, we're dealing with the pixel intensity, right? Where is it, right? Pixel intensity, and we are applying distinct transformations on this matrix of pixels that we call an image, right? Okay. So this is the low-level processing. There's also the mid-level processing. That is where we apply functions for segmentations. When we want to segment a portion of image, so I want to extract every red strawberries from the image from the background of green leaves. So I want to. That's one of the examples that we're going to use in this lecture. And also description of the segmented images. You can use these algorithms to extract attributes of the segmented regions, or also on the classification of individual objects. So you give an image, and the system is capable of identifying what type, an image of a bunch of vegetables. The system is capable of identifying each individual object. This is called classification, image classification. And on a more high level, of the high level processing, which is actually the interpretation of the scene. And this is the area that most of my work is on, which is given a picture, the system develop algorithms to describe the scene properly, to describe in terms of words, or to give a little sequence, a video sequence, and the system is capable to say what kind of action is going on in this sequence. Now, this is an excellent book for those of you who want to learn more, because it starts from basic principles, from the first principles. This lecture is based on this book, and I have a 12-week course where we read 90% of this book, Digital Image Processing. It's one of my bedside books. It's a wonderful book. All right. So applications then for image processing, image restoration and enhancement for human interpretation, for in the industry, medicine, biological science, geography, for processing aerial or satellite images. In archaeology, it's quite interesting tasks. Restore blurred pictures, and for machine perception. Machine perception is extracting information from the image in a form that's more suitable for the computer processing. It's also called robot vision. Now, this is the distinction. So once image processing, it's a good description. Image processing falls into this. Once we want to apply algorithms to an image for enhancement, restoration, but important is for the human use. So when we want to modify an image for the human use, being it for medical purposes, for diagnostics, or for analyzing some microbia or whatever, for the scientist to analyze, or for the physicist to analyze particles from pictures. When it's used for human interpretation, it's called image processing. When it's using for machines to do something about it, such as in a robot, it's called computer vision, right? Computer vision. Right, a quick run through a number of applications. Most of you have seen this. This is a PET scan or a bone scan. This is a bone scan, right? And the goal of image processing is then to identify tumors. So you can you see that this is a particular a brighter spot. So you can use image processing to find this brightest spot and to measure them to actually be help to diagnose tumors. And this is the gamma ray. This is the gamma radiation for Cygnus loop, which is it's a structure in the in space, right? So it's a astronomical entity, astronomical object. And this is the gamma radiation from a nuclear reactor. So you can see applications in medicine, applications in astrophysics, application in nuclear physics for just by a simple gamma ray imaging. X-ray imaging, which is more common for us, so we are well acquainted with this kind of imaging for the human body. For chest X-ray is quite common. Or there's also more complex techniques such as the aortic angiogram, that you insert a radioisotope and then that's going to emit some X-rays from inside of your body, and your sensor is going to pick up this X-ray information. Or you can use X-ray to analyze circuit boards. This is an X-ray of a circuit board, where the task of computer vision and image processing will be to identify these elements of this board and basically identify defects, and to count the elements, and to measure, to give you a measure of quality of a circuit board. And well, this is Cygnus loop. This is the X-ray radiation from Cygnus loop. The same one, the same structure that we see here in a gamma ray. This is the X-ray, its X-ray signature. Ultraviolet imaging. This is an ultraviolet imaging of a normal corn. This is an ultraviolet imaging of an infected corn, where you can use image processing to measure the degree of normalness, or the degree. This is a corn with fungi, and you can actually identify what kind of fungus and how infected is this corn. And this is our friend Cygnus loop again. This is the ultraviolet image from Cygnus loop. All the imaging on the visible and infrared bands, there's a whole bunch of them, such as light microscopy images. This is an anti-cancer agent called Taxol. This is a cholesterol cell enhanced 40 times. This is a microprocessor enhanced 60 times. This is the it's used for visual inspection. When in this lecture, when I call visual, I'm talking about computational visual, right? Computer vision inspection. Nickel oxide film, surface of an audio CD. That's quite interesting. And this is an organic superconductor enhanced 450 times. Okay, so another variety of images, which are the multispectral images, where you can see here, this is one layer of an image that carries visible blue. This is another layer that carries visible green, and this is another layer that carries visible red, and then near infrared. This is one image composed of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 layers of distinct spectrum. So you can use it for identifying distinct characteristics, such as if you use visible blue, you get a good representation of water, visible green, plant vigor, visible red, vegetation discrimination, near infrared, biomass or shoreline mapping, middle infrared, moisture content, thermal infrared, soil or thermal mapping, shortwave infrared, mineral mapping. Also, you can use visible and infrared for identifying and classifying all sorts of weather phenomena. Infrared imaging. These are nice pictures of satellite images of the Americas. So we can see the very well populated areas here in the US. They are well brightened up by infrared. You can use computer vision for visual inspection, so that you want to, as I said, you want to inspect to measure exactly every single component and whether they were placed properly. You want to see if every pill is being put properly, and you want to measure the content of the liquid in each bottle and identify the ones that don't follow the pattern that you want. These are air bubbles in a clear plastic product, so you don't want too many air bubbles, so you can use machine vision to count the number of bubbles and reject those that have too many bubbles. This is a picture of a cereal, and this is an image of an intraocular implant, where you can see that there are some defects here, so you can use machine vision to identify, isolate, and segment and classify these implants. You can use computer vision to digital thumbprint identification, to the identification of currency, of fake currency, and this dreadful application, which is automated license plate reading, where this is actually quite simple to develop. If you do my image processing course at the end, you're going to be able to develop a system on your own that identifies the location of the plate and also reads the plate and can even access the internet for if this plate has been is authorized or not. Microwave. This is a picture of the Southeast Tibet using radar. So this is microwave information. It's a beautiful image. Radio band, MRI. So for instance, we're not in so we are in the far end of the spectrum now. Where is the spectrum? So we are now talking about radio waves. Radio waves, where you can see an MRI of a knee, an MRI of a spine here with a small fracture, where you want to enhance this image, identify this location, and be able to measure, and all done using simple computer algorithms. Low energy radio band, so this is the gamma, this is crab pulsar, another astronomical object. This is the gamma radiation of the crab pulsar. This is the X-ray. This is the optical, infrared, and radio. So you can see that distinct frequencies have distinct information. Other imaging modalities, sonar. So you can see this is a seismic model for showing some possible oil or gas traps. So this is an image constructed by this kind of trucks where they produce a sound here that penetrates the ground, and when the sound comes here, depending on the density of things, the sound will return with a particular frequency, and the system here is going to pick up this frequency, and will be able to map exactly the density of the underworld. And well, obviously people want to identify this big kind of oil bright spots that represent oil and gas traps. And ultrasound, normal ultrasound that we all are aware of, where you can see the ultrasound of the baby and do all sorts of measurements with that. Now, let's spend 10 minutes talking about image processing fundamentals that you're going to need to understand the lab work that we're going to be doing this week. So this is a tangential section through the human fovea, where you can see the large cones and blue cones, that identify. So basically, this is used. I have to spend 1 hour talking about, in my image processing course, I spent 1 hour talking about the human perception system and how the cones work. But you can see that these are small cells that perceive distinct colors, right? And you can see that this is a kind of discretized sensor. So there are many tiny sensors that our human eye, the human eye uses to identify the world. It's not much different from the digital system, where the digital system does almost the same. Where you have a scene here, it's kind of a pair-like object, and this is the imaging system. What the imaging system does, it discretizes the image, where the output will be something like this. So this is the input, so nice and smooth and analogic world is translated to a digitized world that is composed of picture elements or pixels. And this is done by two processes. One process is sampling, the other process is quantization. So this is the actual information. Let's get our pair and look at one cross section of this pair from A to B. So the actual signal that is read is it's very complex, right? It's very complex because the world is very complex. And if we input all of this analogical information into the computer, it becomes a quite difficult and complex data to process. So what the digital image processing, the pre-processing does, is that it samples. It gets little samples of this signal, and these samples are then, this is called sampling, so you're sampled by a certain rate. So the more samples you get, the better is your image, but also the more complex is your image. Not sure if you can see the blue dots here, these are samples. And each sample is then quantized. Quantized means that I can't have this kind of very general and complex and rich set of intensities in a machine. What I do is that I just set a discretized multiple levels of intensities. So if this one falls within this gap, it will be black. So it won't be more or less black. It will be black. We'll have this value of intensity. And this one will have this value. And this one will have, I think, this value. And this one will fall here. This is quantization. So actually the process of digitalizing an image passes through actually sweeping this line. So this line is passed through this whole image. So you can imagine that. Obviously the process is a little bit more complex. You capture the whole image, and then you sample it and quantize, and at the end you have this digitalized image, which this is a linear representation of this stuff here. All right. Now, yeah. So this is the original image. This is the digitalized image. Well, again, what we have then is what I started this lecture talking with here, which is this is the matrix. This is the matrix of x and y. Each point in of this matrix is representing a pixel, and each pixel represents an intensity level. This is intensity, when it's white, is intensity level 0, and this is an intensity level of this is probably the maximum intensity level, and this order falls within the quantized interval defined here by your process of quantization. All right. So, and this is represented exactly as a matrix. So remember when we learned about matrix manipulation, and as students we thought, oh, but this why am I learning this? It's not used for anything. It's used for everything. For everything that deals with images is matrix transformations, right? Nothing more than this. And so this image then is represented by a matrix. This is the matrix with intensity levels. Right? I hope this became clear, because this is the most basic notion that you need to understand the processing, and also to understand that we all live in the matrix. Sorry to tell you, our eyes, the only thing that our eyes see is a matrix, and everything that we process in computer vision is a matrix. All right. Okay. Now, before I still have a couple of slides to talk about color image processing, where incidentally I talked about this kind of images here with multispectral images. Where are the multispectral images? Just lost them. Where I talked about many layers, right? Do you remember when I talked about many layers? Let's go slowly here. Here. There are many layers. Now, a color image, it's not multispectral, but it has three layers. The most common way of representing a color image has three layers. But they are called channels. They are called channels. Now, I said that an image is nothing more than a matrix with intensities, right? Where each pixel element represents an intensity of a pixel. A color image is still a matrix. Actually, the simplest way of understanding a color image is a combination of three matrices. One that has the pixel intensities for the color red, the other that has the pixel intensity for the color blue, and the other that has the pixel intensity for the color green. That creates the system of representation that's called RGB, which are red, green, and blue. And you know from when you were I don't know, year 2 or year 3, that every color can be created by a combination of red, green, and blue color intensities. And this is called the primary colors. And a color image is nothing more than a combination of three matrices of pixel intensities for the same image. One matrix representing red, one matrix representing intensity of blue, and one matrix representing intensity of green. Now, there are other ways of coding these colors. There are other color systems. This RGB is the most common because that's the one that TVs use, and I think most computer screens use. But once you're talking about a JPEG, for instance, an image JPEG, or a printer doesn't use RGB, and a JPEG doesn't encode in RGB. A JPEG encodes as cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, in the same way that a printer uses the system CMYK, which is a combination of not three matrices, but of four matrices, one for each intensity level, one representing pixel intensity level for each one of these four channels. There are other image attributes, other image representation, with this HSV, that represents hue, saturation, and value. This is a longer story, which I'm not gonna start here, but just give you a few examples. So we all know RGB, right? So if you open a Windows somewhere, you can find this color combination, and you can just find any sort of color that we know of by changing the intensity levels of red, green, and blue. Now I talked about the so this is an RGB image, right? So if you get the image, that's what we're going to do in the one thing that we're going to do in the lab. Get the original image, and then only read the red channel. You're going to have an intensity, a matrix showing the intensity levels of red, and then if you get the green channel, it's just a matrix of intensity red of green. If you get the blue channel, just a matrix of intensity levels of blue. And this is a representation of the various ways of representing an image. This is the CMYB. There's another way of representing an image that's cyan, magenta, yellow. There's red, green, blue, the common, and the hue, saturation, intensity, or HSI in the sense. The HSV is similar to this, and there's like over 200 ways of representing a color image. The basics of full color image processing is that if on the grayscale image I said we work on matrix manipulations, and where each pixel is represented by its XY coordinate, and the function of XY is the intensity of the pixel. There is one particular notion that we have to understand, is that most image processing, not most, but some of the most important image processing methods are going to be using a 2D neighborhood of the pixel. And what this neighborhood is going to do is this neighborhood is also a matrix itself, a little matrix, where that we use to change the image, to apply filters to the image. And what we do is that we apply this little matrix at every point. We just move this matrix and apply this matrix transformation at every point. And the way we do this is that, there are many ways of many definitions, but one of the simplest definitions is that we multiply the values of this little matrix placed everywhere in the image with the values of the pixels on the pixels in the image, and substitute the midpoint of this matrix by the sum of these multiplications. Right? Only this. It's not even matrix multiplication. It's not matrix multiplication. It's just get every element of this matrix and I multiply with every element of this neighborhood defined on this little matrix. On this neighborhood defined on this little matrix, and sum them all. The sum of all of it is substituted in the middle of this neighborhood, right? If you have a 3D image, then what I have to deal with is not with one neighborhood, but with a 3D neighborhood, with a three-dimensional neighborhood, where you had to apply the same transformation in red, green, and blue if you are in the RGB color image space. If you are in the other color image spaces, you apply all the transformations, right? Okay. And these are some links for you to learn more about it. This was just a quick crash course on the basics of image processing, talking about what is a digital image, what are the major applications, and some of the basic concepts of image processing, which is the intensity and pixel as intensity, and the neighborhood of a pixel, and the 3D and the color image representation. If you want to learn more, strongly recommend you this Coursera. It's free. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. This is one of the best, the key world-class lecturers talking about image and video processing. And he was the one who developed the compression algorithms that are now used in the Mars rovers. Yeah, exactly. Those ones that went to Mars. We are going to use in the lab this library, OpenCV. You can check the documentation of the library here to see what's it all about. And this is a wonderful documentation that explains exactly what each method is doing. There is this Udemy course, which I recommend to everybody. It's a paid course, but it costs about $20, where the guy explains step by step the applications of Python for computer vision. He is wonderful. It's a great explanation, and it teaches a little bit of Python, teaches a little bit of OpenCV, and goes through the whole a whole bunch of methods for applying computer vision, and also Python tutorials. I hope you had the chance this week to play around with Python. There's a bunch of free tutorials on the internet. Right, this is a good one. This is a good one. NumPy is a Python library for manipulating matrices, where you manipulate a matrix in the same way that we do in MATLAB. So it simplifies quite a bit. And if you are interested in a more hand-guided Python course with other topics, there is this Code Academy. It's great. This is by subscription. I think it's, I don't know, $20 per month or something, and they do teach quite a load of Python, and it's very good. All right, I hope you have enjoyed. Sorry, I tried to put quite a bunch of stuff in 30 minutes. It's always tricky to do, but we are gonna be playing with Python and OpenCV during the labs. All right, I'll see you online. Bye.